final season of classic Doctor Who begins here with Battlefield. Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of Doctor Who Season 26, Story 1, Battlefield, the first story of the final Doctor Who classic season, or the final season of classic Doctor Who. So, Battlefield, and it's the second story by Ben Avoronich. They were so impressed by Remembrance of the Daleks, they asked him back, and in fact, he was actually supposed to write the first story of Season 27, which, as of course we all know, didn't get made, but showed that they liked him as a writer, so they would have liked him back for the next season as well. Okay, Battlefield. And also, we'll be taking a look at both the original TV version and the 2008 special edition. We're not taking a look at the VHS version that will be appearing on the Season 26 Blu-ray because I haven't got that. I don't think anyone's got that because it's not out yet. That'll be December. When that thing comes, if you're watching this after Season 26's Blu-ray release, then it is out. But we're just looking at the two versions on the DVD. Same for Curse of Fenric. Okay, so Battlefield. This is a bloody brilliant story. Again, Season 26, like Season 25, open on bangers. And I thank Ben Avoronich for opening both seasons on bangers. And yeah, as I mentioned in, I think, Attack of the Cybermen review, or at least one of the Sixth Doctor videos, that apart from Attack of the Cybermen, season openers hadn't been very good since Season 16. I personally don't like Destiny of the Daleks, mainly for what they do with the Daleks. And then Leisure Hive, also not that great. Castrovel was probably the best after the Attack of the Cybermen by default. Arc of Infinity, Warriors of the Deep, I actually like, but that's a very controversial opinion. And The Mysterious Planet, easily the weakest part of the Trial of the Time Lord, and Time of the Rani is the worst post-regeneration story and the worst regeneration story of the show. The only exception to the season 17 to 24 opening story that is not bad, or at least better than okay, is Attack of the Cybermen, which is awesome. And then we get to season 25's opener, Remembrance of the Daleks, which blows everything else that came before or after out of the water, apart from Day of the Doctor, possibly, depending on what I think on a rewatch. But definitely Remembrance of the Daleks blows everything else, apart from maybe Day of the Doctor, out of the water. So yeah, thank God for that. And as I mentioned, Ben Avoronich continues to write amazing season openers with Battlefield. I hope Earthshade would have been, which would have been his season 27 opener, would have been another fantastic opener. Sounded good. Definitely sounded good. So, okay, the plot of Battlefield sees the Doctor and Ace receive a message that takes them to Earth. By the way, I do have to mention this early on in Season 26. Apart from the scenes in Survival that take place on the Cheetah Planet, apart from those scenes, which is probably, I think, all of Part 2 and parts of Parts 1 and most of 3, but apart from those bits, pretty much the entirety of this season is set on Earth. Apart from parts of Survival on the Cheetah Planet, the entirety of Season 26 is Earth-based. And not the same way as the John Pertwee years, as in, they just go to Earth every story. I mean, yeah, they do go to the Cheetah Planet and Survival as well, but not by TARDIS. It's more by Cheetah Teleport or whatever they do there. And even then, it's still a pretty Earth-based story for part of that story, especially in the opening and the climax. Yeah, it is different points of Earth's history. This is it's apparently 1997, even though the Doctor says it's 3 years in Ace's history, Ace's future. Apparently, Ghostlight takes place in 1983. So the continuity is kind of a bit muddled. And I suppose this is supposed to be I suppose they originally thought it to be 1989 when they wrote it, this story. So basically a present-day setting. However, thanks to unit dating confusions, it might actually be set 8 years later in 1997 as opposed to 1989. Oh, it's confusing as hell. Survival definitely takes place in 89. Curse of Fenric takes place in 1943, and Ghostlight's 1883, I think. Yeah, 1983 is when Ace burns that house down, and 100 years earlier is when the rest of the story is set. So 1883 for that one. So yeah, this story's dating is a bit of a controversial one, thanks to unit dating controversy. Anyway, the Doctor and Ace arrive at Vartican's lake, or nearby that lake, to the lake, and they soon get involved with a battle between knights from another dimension. One's Knights of King Arthur and Knights of Morgan Le Fay, mother of Mordred. So the King Arthur legend is being given a sci-fi twist, and the final battle comes to the present day, and you got the involvement of UNIT involved as well, led by Brigadier Bambira, Brigadier Winifred Bambira to be precise. However, with the Doctor's involvement, it also brings out Brigadier Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart out of retirement for one final adventure. Yay! Oh god, the Brigadier gets to meet the 7th Doctor. It's a shame he didn't meet the 6th Doctor, unless you count Dimensions in Time. On screen, of course, he will get a couple of Big Finish appearances, or at least one. And he will also get to meet the 8th Doctor in Big Finish as well. And apparently in the comics he meets the 9th and 10th. Maybe 11th, I'm not sure. Apparently all the Doctors came to his funeral in a short story, or some sort of story. Anyway, so the Brigadier comes back out of retirement for one last adventure to help the Doctor. And they fight off Morgan Le Fay and Mordred, who, by the way, the actor playing Mordred seems to be having a ball of a time. He is possibly the most fun character to watch on screen. He's just enjoying every single minute of screen time. He might be a bit hammy, but he's enjoying it. And also Jean Marsh, who formerly played Sarah Kingdom in Dalek's Master Plan, and before that was I can't remember her name. Joanna, Princess Joanna in The Crusade, sister of King Richard the Lionheart, who coincidentally was played by Julian Glover, who would go on to play Scaroth in City of Death, which was 10 years before this story. Oh god, that was a fantastic one. But anyway, so Jean Marsh is back, and this time as a villain character, and oh my god, like the actor playing Mordred, she is just delicious. She is giving everything she can. She's clearly happy to be back, like Jacqueline Hill was back in Meglos. She's clearly happy to be back in the show, and she's having a whale of a time as a guest character in this story as the main villainess. And I think Jean Marsh's best performance of what I've seen of her comes at the very end of the story, when the Doctor informs her that Arthur died in the final battle, and she can't quite believe it, but knows this is not a trick. This, unlike several other times where the Doctor tricks his enemies and sometimes friends, but this time she knows he's telling the truth, and she's kind of shocked about it, and sort of sad as well, and kind of sort of grieving in her own way. The way she presents her line, that is masterclass acting from Jean Marsh. I also have to say Sylvester McCoy is once again at his best in this story. McCoy is just outstanding, and I love how they're going all out with his darker, more mysterious side, and he's just having a brilliant time. I also love his more brown costume with the chocolate brown coat. I don't know if it's chocolate, but it's a brown coat, and it's sort of a more brownier waistcoat or jumper. It just looks really nice. He's still got the hat, but I think the hat still works with the costume. Ghostlight, I think, is the only story that he doesn't have the hat with. And yeah, I think his new costume looks really great, and it fits his Doctor really well. I do like his cream costume from the first 2 seasons, but I think this darker costume represents his Doctor, at least the darker side of his Doctor, better. I think it would have been a great costume for season 25. The cream costume certainly represents the 7th Doctor of his earlier seasons and earlier stories really well. But when we get to the darker side of this Doctor, his brown coat is definitely the better costume, and it looks really good. And Sophie Aldred continues to be brilliant as Ace, or should I say Ace as Ace. and she gets really great. And also more of her character is going to get more personality development and character growth over the season. And like last season, we get a bit more of that. This story, however, will be the next 3 stories, or at least the next 2 stories in particular, where we'll get a lot more of the character. And also Nicholas Courtney continues to be amazing as Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart once again. I also like Brigadier Bambira. I think she's really good as a kind of a sort of a sassy character. And I suppose her catchphrase is shame, which I guess is a family-friendly show's alternative to oh shit. She's really funny and really enjoyable. I would have liked to have seen her as a bit more of a recurring character if the show had continued after the season. And similarly, what's his name? Aragon, the knight who's on the side of King Arthur, the only one, by the way. He's a good character. He's fun. He's enjoyable. It's great to see him on board the team. The other knights all work for Mordred and Morgan Le Fay, and we also got this Chinese girl, Li Xin. But we've got this Chinese girl. She's pretty good supporting character. And pretty much Ace's mirror image. She's pretty fun in places. There's also this one bit where the villains try to play mind games on the 2 girls. And we get a bit of an uncomfortable bit where Ace accidentally uses some racist slurs towards the character. Ouch. This is season 26, not season 3. But I think it works in the context of their mind being played around with and their emotions are being muddled about. So it makes a lot of sense. And they pretty much realise what's going on not pretty quickly, and they get together and band against it. So the characters work really well together. Also supporting characters includes the pub landlord and his formerly blind wife until Morgan is able to cure her blindness as a thank you for her son being able to drink well. And also the archaeologist who dug up the site, he gets some fun lines. And I love the bit where the Doctor kind of uses hypnotism to make them want to leave instead of leading to an all-out argument when the archaeologist and the pub landlord are complaining about being forced to leave. So before an argument gets out of hand, the Doctor uses his hypnotisms to get them to leave, providing that making sure that they are safe. That was a brilliant bit and ties in with the Doctor's dark and more mysterious personality in that scene. That was brilliant. And also we got a Polish corporal, I think it was a corporal, or general or something, a Polish soldier who's helping Bambira, played by Robert Jesek, who big Finnish fans should know. He's mainly notable for playing Frobisher in The Holy Terror and The Maltese Penguin, and that's a character I would love to hear or see come back. But yeah, I think Jesek does a great job with his character, and the character himself is pretty cool in scenes. There's also this Czech girl who helps the Brigadier get to the site, and sadly she gets killed off just because by Morgan. I think she needs the information and the memories from the girl, but then just leaves her brain dead, I guess. A bit like what the Daleks do to Raj, I believe his name was, in Doomsday in 2006, Series 2. So pretty much like that, except this time the skull isn't turned into a burnt cinder. Instead, she turns her into ashes shortly afterwards. And I was kind of annoyed that the character's death wasn't made clear wasn't addressed on screen in the TV version when I saw it for the first time. I actually saw this for the first time when in the 50th anniversary celebrations, when they were doing the Doctor's Revisited documentaries, and they would show a Doctor Who story with them, and some of them I'd seen before, some of them I hadn't seen. Remembrance of the Daleks and Stolen Earth Journey's End were the 7th and 10th Doctor's ones, and they were swapped out with Battlefield and Science and Library Forest of the Dead for the UK ones. All the other Doctor ones for the UK and the US were the exact same. The Aztecs, the Tomb of the Cybermen, Spearhead from Space. What's the 4th Doctor's one? 5, was it Earthshock? I think it might have been Earthshock. 6 was Vengeance from Varos. 7 for America was Remembrance of the Daleks. For the UK, it was Battlefield. 8 was the TV movie. 9, I believe, was The Empty Child and Doctor Dances or Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways. I think it was the latter, actually. 10 was Stolen Earth Journey's End for the US, and Science and Library Forest of the Dead in the UK. And 11 was The Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon. Anyways, but yeah, Battlefield, when I first saw it for the first time, I was kind of annoyed that they didn't address the Czech/Polish girl's death on screen. And however, I do have to say that the special edition version includes a scene where, at the very end of that scene, the Brigadier does acknowledge the death. He wants the ashes buried with honour. So I do have to say thank you to the special edition for including that scene. And the scene itself is a very good scene anyway. Special edition is pretty cool, and it has some great new effects, and it has some new scenes that I suppose replace other scenes, but I suppose the scenes it cuts aren't that missed. And yeah, very well done for the special edition crew. And the story itself is a brilliant story. So yeah, I'm just disappointed that they cut that scene in the TV version where the death not being acknowledged, but thankfully the special edition includes it. And on the whole, the story is really great and really entertaining. Some great stuff, really great set pieces. I think there's some slightly dodgy direction, some slightly dodgy editing, very slightly though. Not enough to deter my enjoyment. Not 100% polished, but certainly a very strong season opener. Along with Attack of the Cybermen and Remembrance of the Daleks, it's one of the best season openers of the 1980s. And I would even go so far to say it's even better than Ribos Operation. Well, I gave that one an 8 out of 10 as well. So it's technically the third best season opener since season 15's Horror of Fang Rock. And I might even consider it better than that. Very strong season opener. In fact, the 3 season openers from the 1980s might be the best season openers since the 3 Doctors. Possibly, although I did like Horror of Fang Rock a lot, and Terror of the Zygons. But I think the top 3 80s season openers stories are the best ones since the 3 Doctors. But considering their competition, that's not saying much. Post-season 16 competition, I should say. So on the whole, I'm going to give Battlefield a 9 out of 10. Brilliant story, and I highly recommend it. It's not completely perfect. I also think the Brigadier doesn't have a huge amount of scenes in parts 1 and 2, but I think he gets quite a lot of stuff to do in part 3 and 4, so that makes up for it. And the final scene is also really fun and enjoyable. And yeah, it's an epic story. Also, fun fact: apparently, in the cliffhanger of part 2, in the bit with Sophie Aldred, Ace is in this glass cabinet and it's filling water. Apparently, the glass got dislodged or broken, and Sylvester McCoy noticed this and said that she had to be gotten out of there. You'll see this in the More Than 30 Years in the TARDIS documentary. And I think I heard it in a Doctor Who Adventures magazine, where Sylvester McCoy noticed that the glass was a bit dislodged and said that Sophie Aldred should be getting out of there to prevent her from drowning. So well done, Sylvester McCoy. Well done. Told you he was amazing. So yeah, that's Battlefield. That was an amazing season opener. It's not one of the best stories of all time, but it's certainly one of the best stories. It's certainly one of the best season openers since the 3 Doctors. Anyway, next time we'll be taking a look at Ghostlight, the second story of this season. And sadly, this will be the final story that got recorded until, excluding Wilderness Years stories, until 1996. So yeah, next time we'll be taking a look at the story that was the final classic series story to be put into production, Ghostlight. Even though it's only the second story of the season, but like new series stories, they don't always film in order. They did with the 60s stories, maybe some of the 70s ones, but then they started doing them more out of order, stories and episodes out of order, especially if they had lots of location work. So that's good. So yeah, that Ghost Light is the last recorded Doctor Who classic series story. So we'll be taking a look at that next time, and I'll see you guys then. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here. I'm going to start again. Maybe or certainly one of the reviews in the 6th or 7th Doctor series, or certainly one of the 6th Doctor reviews that season openers hadn't, or... And then we get to season 25, which blows and Benevolent, as I mentioned, continues to which could be... apparently Ghostlight takes place in 1983, which is 6 years, 3 years before. However, with the unit dating confusion, it might be it's. Does it say? Yeah, 18. But anyways, story. Who was coincidentally played by future Scaroff. I also love his new costume with the brown coat. Yeah. But, whilst, yeah, the cream costume certainly represents the Doctor of the earlier seasons, but when we get to the darker Doctor, the brown coat is where, the brown coats, and we start getting it again, like with some of the bits from last season. We're going to get a bit more of that over. I suppose her shame comment I suppose her we get a pretty dark bit where, and we get a pretty nasty bit where AC, and it's consider this is season 26, not season 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5 or 6. So that's a great bit. That was a brilliant bit. The Doctor is. Don't quite remember. It was definitely a 4-parter. They were all 2 or 4 parts. 6. 4 might have been City of Death. Maybe. 5 was Earthshock. I think 6. They didn't. Which, yeah, and it's definitely, along with Attack of the Cybermen and Remembrance of the Daleks, it's the best. It's one of the best season openers of season of the 1980s. It's the best one since season 15 with. So after it's I think the 380s ones that I consider higher than an 8. So fantastic. So anyway, next time we'll be taking a look at another. So next time, you know, eventually over the course they didn't. The final Doctor Who classic series. I'm going to start again. The final series of classic Doctor started season. Shut up!